They shoot. They score. Goal setting. In today's episode, we are talking about goal setting. But don't worry, just like we like a twist with our cocktails, we like a twist with our goal setting as well. So, we are going to focus on personal development goals instead of just professional development goals. Of course, these skills will also help you professionally and in your careers because we're going to focus on things like leadership, technical skills, communication, and the ever so important work-life balance.
We were so excited to talk to you about how you would achieve those goals, what you were going to do this next year. And then it occurred to us that, well, you may just think we're talking about those professional goals and forget about the personal growth goals, what they look like, how they can help you, again, both personally and professionally. So, shock of all shocks, Julie and I decided we were going to start at the beginning and talk to you about what professional personal goals look like and how you can actually achieve these goals. I'm so excited. We're going to have a lot of fun and enjoy our end of the year specialty drinks. Hey, Jules, you want to explain to everybody what we're doing and what you're drinking?
I would be delighted to. So, if you have been listening or you've been following our Facebook page, which if you haven't, please do so because we do a lot of fun things there. We had asked our listeners to give us drink recipes and bonus points if they included wine. And then we said that Trisha and I were each going to select one drink recipe, and that person would get some Wine with HR merchandise. So that's super exciting and fun.
So fun.
Now, we were supposed to have a guest, and that guest did choose one of the recipes, but unfortunately, our guest was not able to make it. We had a little bit of a last minute schedule change, but we want the recipe that she chose and the person who sent us that one to get credit for it. So we are actually going to give away merchandise to 3 people. So Rachel White is the one that the guest had picked. Full disclosure, is my niece, but I didn't tell her that, so this is all fair game. But Rachel had submitted a recipe for winter sangria with pears and pomegranate, which sounds delightful. So, Trish, we're definitely going to have to make that one and try it on a future episode.
For sure. For sure.
I chose Rebecca Bennett's recipe, and hers is a winter white wine sparkler. The ingredients are 1 cup of chilled dry white wine like Sauvignon Blanc, which of course you know I love, Pinot Grigio, or a dry Riesling. I am using a Sauvignon Blanc. A 1/2 cup of ginger beer, 1 ounce elderflower liqueur. Now, I could not find that, so I improvised and used a little bit of elderflower tonic, a splash of pear juice or white grape juice, and the garnish is a pear slice plus a rosemary sprig. So the rosemary gives it this delightful aroma. I picked a red pear to give it some extra color. So we're going to put pictures of our final products on the website as well. And I've been sitting here staring at it, so I can't wait to actually taste it. So hold, please. Oh yeah, that's delightful. You get the aroma of the rosemary as you kind of pick it up to drink it. And then you can definitely taste the wine, but the ginger beer just gives it a little zip. And then I can't really taste a ton of the elderflower tonic, which obviously that's different than the liqueur. So that's probably, I think the rosemary is overpowering it a little bit. But it is a lovely, very refreshing cocktail. So thank you very much, Rebecca. Trisha, how about you? Whose did you pick and what are you drinking?
So because you and, well, who was supposed to be our guest both went white, of course I had to be the opposite and go red. Plus, it's cold up here and it's snowy again. So I picked Daisy Balls wonderful mulled wine recipe, which, so everybody can write this down, it's a bottle of red wine.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, we love that for starters. A full orange sliced into rounds, plus more for serving. 6 whole cloves, 3 cinnamon sticks, 3 star anise pods, a half a cup of brandy, and a quarter cup of honey. Or if you're like me, you go, oh, well, I have a little bit of this extra red wine and a full bottle, so we might add a little more brandy and a little more honey and definitely a little more cinnamon. Anyway, you never, ever, ever want to boil a mulled wine, just so everybody knows. You want to really just heat it very, very gently. Otherwise, you're going to lose all the alcohol, and then it ends up not tasting right. It tastes bitter. So I would definitely, definitely recommend going very slowly. The other thing that I want to warn people too is you don't want to use anything with a lot of tannins. So as much as I'm not a big fan of Merlots are highly recommended. Malbecs, Syrahs. So what I did, I know everybody out there knows that other than like Josh, I also love that Menage a Trois. So I did actually a Menage a Trois blend that had Pinot Noir, Malbec, and Syrah. So yes, it is. I am not as good as Julie. I've been sipping it since we sat down. It is absolutely fantastic. So Daisy, thank you so, so much for the suggestion. What a great one. And I hope you enjoy your Wine with HR merchandise.
Yeah, so we will be reaching out to our 3 winners, so to speak, with more details about what merch you get and how we'll get it to you. And then we were so appreciative of all the recipes that were provided to us that we're going to continue to try the recipes because we thought they were all great. And so there will be future selections coming and more people getting wine merch. So be on the lookout for that in the new year. But now let's get to the WHINE of the episode. And let's first talk a little bit about the difference between professional goals and personal goals. So this might seem pretty obvious, but it's worth just sort of setting it out as to what we're talking about when we speak about professional versus personal goals. Professional goals focus solely on career advancement, typically promotion. Specific achievements, so your performance metrics or KPIs, or skill acquisition, so completing a training or certification. Those are directly related to your job. Personal development goals, on the other hand, go beyond the workplace. They encompass areas such as communication skills, emotional intelligence, time management, and self-awareness.
Jules, you know how you and I always say your employees should feel heard, valued, and respected? I'm thinking we need to add empowered.
Ooh, I love that term.
Yeah, I think those 3 things kind of lead right into empowered. And that really is for me, the most important thing about personal development goals. It's that ability to empower our employees to take ownership of their own growth and development, like not just in the workplace, but in all aspects of their life where they could or would like to see improvement. Um, so, as an example, Julie was just mentioning improving communication skills. The idea behind that is that it can lead to stronger relationships. And if you have stronger relationships, if you do face some sort of adversity, again, whether it's professional or personal, you could be a lot stronger. It helps us get through those times. The other cool thing about personal growth, at least as far as I'm concerned, is it's so fun and it's so exciting. We're in an era where we like a lot of instant feedback. We don't like to wait around. We want instant gratification. That's the word I'm looking for. Well, these fit right along into that because the value that it adds to your life, you can see this really super quick. Um, Not only that, but it can lead to a mindset shift for you. And so, what I'm thinking specifically is like a growth mindset. The more that you see the value of what you're learning, the more you want to learn and the more you want to grow, which then leads to a sense of fulfillment, just overall well being, happiness. Okay, I've already talked about snow, so let's keep going. Talk about the snowball effect. Had to. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
Ba-dum-bum.
Right?
All right. Well, before we get into some examples, let's just take a quick review of what SMART goals are because you've probably heard Trisha and I mention this. You've probably heard about SMART goals in other trainings, but you do want to have some way to measure what you're doing. And a lot of the things we're going to be talking about are somewhat intangible goals. So it might be a little bit harder to figure it out. So we'll try to give you examples of how you can make them measurable as we move forward. But just as a point of review, SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant to your job or your growth in this particular case, and time bound. So they have to happen within a certain time frame. So it's helpful to use that as a framework when we are talking about these goals because again, you have to know if you reach them, number one, and number two, if what you set out to do is actually working. So we want to always keep that in the back of our times. But before we get any further into that, you know what time it is.
Stat time. And I will next year have my own music.
You bet.
All right. There are so many stats that I found that I thought would be helpful. But I wanted to speak to first managers and then employees. Nine in out of 10 managers say that they expect key initiatives to fail due to lack of resources. So, for those of you out there thinking, well, how can I pass this along to my teams? How can I pass this along so that our C suite will buy into allowing people to do more than just their professional goals? Remember that you want to make sure that you are providing resources. Providing resources does not mean having to spend money. Julie and I have told you that time and time again. It just means, hey, do a little research, find out what you can to help that's what you're doing right now, by the way, listening to this, so that you can actually help your employees achieve these goals. And managers, instead of thinking, oh, this is ultimately going to fail, you can start with more positives. So, here are some of the positive stats. Employees who set goals are 14.2 times more likely to feel inspired at work, which I thought is pretty awesome. Employees with clearly defined goals are also 3.6 more likely to stay committed to their organization. So maybe it doesn't seem like that big of an amount, but when you start adding that up, it really does have a cumulative effect. Snow joke again. Goal setting increases job satisfaction with employees being 6.7 times more likely to feel proud of their organization. And I think that's low. I bet you it is so much higher than that. This is the one I really liked, and I think our managers and HR reps will really get behind this one. Employees with clear goals are 8.1 times more likely to actively seek ways to improve their work. So those are just some fun ones. Not quite the big numbers that we've heard all along, but Julie and I have often talked to you all about little steps, little bits add up to really big amounts.
Yeah, and Trish, when you were talking about the goal setting stats, if you draw that out a little bit, it makes perfect sense why people who set goals in the workplace are typically more satisfied because if they are setting goals and they are actually talking with their managers on a regular basis to review those goals and they are
Mhm.
hitting those goals, they are probably getting more kudos and more recognition. So they're being seen and
Yeah.
valued and heard and empowered. So,
Nice tie back.
oh, thanks.
By the
Thanks.
way, that percentage is about 34% higher job satisfaction to go with what you were just saying.
See? Perfect. Perfect. All right. So we've mentioned a couple of times, developing a growth mindset. So what do we mean by that? A person with a growth mindset believes that they can develop basic abilities through dedication and hard work. This view creates a love of learning and resilience essential for outstanding career accomplishments. With a growth mindset, employees work continually to improve their skills, leading to greater growth and success. It is the foundation of setting personal development goals and the attitude needed to accomplish them. So that's what we're asking you to put yourselves in is this growth mindset. And then as we talk through some of the goals that you could set, we'll also, as we said, give you some tips for setting smart goals around those, bigger goal titles, so to speak. And we're going to focus on some goals you might not typically think to set. So we're going to focus on the ones that are a little bit more unusual, are more focused on being a manager and making sure that you are succeeding with your team and that your team is succeeding under your leadership. So, Trish, you want to start us off with? Uh,
I do. Before we get into the more unusual ones, I want to run through just a couple of our more normal, as we'll say, goals that we might think about. So the first one would be anything that, again, going with that skill development and expertise that Julie was just mentioning, that growth mindset. So in this one, we're talking about like mastering some sort of a new software, or maybe, oh, I've been wanting to learn how to do pivot tables. Yuck. Um, Earning a professional certification, like Julie mentioned earlier, maybe it's just a basic job skill that you know that if you learn that, it could help you get to the next step in your career. So I'm going to look at new job skill and say, here is an example of a SMART goal. In the next 6 months, take a class that is in something different than what you actually do currently, but is also applicable to your role, but most importantly, where you want to grow in the future. So, SMART goal would be, again, we're talking about something that would be measurable, specific, right? And so our time bound is in the next 6 months. If you just made this without having the time bound, the year's going to come and go and you will forget to do this. And then of course your measuring is seeing, okay, I couldn't do this before, now I can. And then the fact that it is relevant because it is somewhat relevant to your current role, or definitely relevant, but allows you to grow into a new position. That's really the part I wanted to focus on for that one.
Yeah, and then to expand on that, your next goal, once you complete that one, could be, I'm going to, within the next 6 months, I'm going to find ways to apply this to my current role or to, make an argument as to why I should be in a different role. And obviously that doesn't sound super specific, but we're talking hypotheticals, so I don't have a real class to think about. But once
Exactly.
once you learn the new skill, you should be able to see how it could apply at your company, in your current role, in the future role you want, whatever the case may be, and then you could set a goal around those parameters. So
Nice.
yeah, so um, there's obviously some other pretty typical ones like developing your leadership skills and capabilities, improving public speaking or presentation abilities. I do want to touch base on that one just because you often have to do that as a manager. You have to talk in front of your group as a team. You have to talk in front of other leaders, in front of the people you report to. And a lot of times you're presenting information. And so if you can get really good at presenting your information in a clear and succinct way, then that is going to take you pretty far because people are going to start to say, oh, that Julie, she really knows what she's talking about. She always comes armed with information. She's quick and to the point, unlike on this podcast. I would say we're clear and succinct, but we're not quick.
Yes. No, never. Not quick at all.
We are trying to get better, but there's two of us and we like to talk. We got a lot to say. But anyway, if you can become really comfortable with public speaking, that's going to take you far as well. So, SMART goal example, within the next 3 months, I am going to take a virtual class on public speaking. And then within the following 3 months, I am going to apply those skills to a presentation that I am giving, and I'm going to ask for feedback about that presentation from whoever you're giving it in front of.
I love that. Um, Speaking of public speaking, I actually want to talk about another one that goes under that kind of leadership and management development, but I don't think a lot of people talk about, and my anyone who's listening who's in my classes knows I harp on this all the time. It's improving your own teaching skills. We as HR professionals, we as managers, we come to the point where we understand things, but we understand it enough maybe to do our jobs. What I would like to see everyone be able to do is understand things well enough to be able to transfer that knowledge to others. I was working with a group of teachers at one point, and they were saying the way you really know if someone understands the material is if they can take what they've learned, put it into their own words, and then communicate that effectively to someone else. And I think that that's incredibly important. All of these new skills that we're talking about, as you develop them, as you are more comfortable, as you grow, then share those with others. And you don't have to be a manager or HR professional or leader of some sort to do this. You could start a group as an employee to be able to do this with your colleagues. Anytime that you can share information and really put it in a way that others understand, it's going to, again, make the eyes fall on you when it does come to promotions and things of that nature.
As you were talking, Trish, it reminded me of this was so many years ago. I can't even remember what kind of training it was in, but whoever was doing the training said to somebody, I want you to teach me how to put on this coat. And it's such a basic thing that people couldn't, like, they're like, well, you just put your arms through the sleeves. And then the instructor put their arms like forward so that it was on backwards, and like
Nice.
this, and really had them like think it out step by step by step. And to your point, I think we often assume that people know a lot more than they might know. And then there is also, I know this is a popular thing in the military. It's a popular method, and I'm going to butcher it, but the idea is you like watch one, do one, and then teach one because that's how you learn, right? So again,
Right.
I'm screwing that up. I know I am, but you get the idea. Like first you watch somebody else do it, then you actually do it yourself, and then you teach somebody else how to do it. And by the time you're teaching somebody else, you've got a really good understanding of whatever it was.
I love that. That is perfect. And that kind of goes with mentoring and coaching, right,
Yep,
Jules? It's exactly
absolutely.
what we're talking about. Let's just throw that one in there since we are talking about leadership and management. Um, don't forget that one of the best ways to improve your own knowledge or to help others improve theirs is through mentoring. it is oftentimes a more informal way of learning that I think we as companies utilize, but maybe not utilize necessarily in the most effective way. Julie and I have talked about the most effective way to utilize mentor programs in some of our past episodes. So I'm just going to leave that there and let you go find them. But also, again, it does help you grow as a person. It helps with your empathy, and it helps others grow as well.
Okay, so now we're going to get into some more like interpersonal and communication skills. This one does piggyback off of some of the ones we've already talked about, uh, like public speaking. You also can think about strengthening your written communication if that's not a strong suit for you. Because again, in our daily life, in our work world, and particularly as a manager, you're probably sending a million emails a week. Maybe not that many, but it sure seems like it, right?
Definitely.
Yes. And again, how you come off an email or text message leaves an impression, and you want it to leave the right impression. I think text messages are really important because we get very comfortable and very informal with text messages. And I don't think that's a good thing. Number one, have you ever gotten a text? Because I know I get them all the time where there's a bunch of typos in it or somebody didn't use punctuation. And so you're reading it and you're like, what? I have no idea what this says. And then you're trying to decipher it, or then you got to go back and forth with the person. And now, if I am your boss and I have to come back to you to say, what does that say? I am annoyed. I
Hmm.
am off the charts annoyed at this point. Again, it leaves an impression for better or worse. So if you don't have great written communication skills, that's always something that you can do. And you can probably find a class online. You could probably find an app that will help you with that. But it is a really good skill to learn. It's just with presentations. If you think of every email or every text message as a mini presentation, you're presenting information, you're presenting facts, maybe you're making an argument as to why something should or should not be done. So you want to, again, be clear, concise, succinct, and understandable. I would add easily understandable. So
Yes.
that would be a good skill to add to your bucket list if it's not a particular strength for you.
I think one of the things that our listeners need to understand is you're not just communicating with your friends when you're texting for work, right? So it's not the same as you can use the little shortcuts with your friends. I get it. But half the time, I know when people have tried sending me things, I've had to look it up. Like, especially back at the beginning, I was like, what does that stand for? So just remember that the person you're communicating with may not know what these little short versions are, and yeah, they will find it a little bit annoying. So when it comes to your professional text, definitely listen to what Julie says. Um, I'm gonna go in a different way since you were talking about how to communicate outwardly. I am going to talk about listening. We haven't talked about listening yet. So active listening is one of my most favorite things. I think that one of the biggest benefits with active listening is that it allows everybody to make sure that they are on the same page. So just okay, so you're saying this. I want to make sure I'm understanding that. If what I understand you're saying is, if you would like me to do. And so the idea is that we are thinking about what we've heard and we are carefully thinking, I should say, before we respond, just to make sure that we are all on the same page and that we really understand where that person is coming from. Because the truth is, maybe they don't mean what you think they mean at all. Going back to the text message reference that Julie was talking about, maybe it means something completely different. The same thing happens when you're speaking. We all have these ideas. We think we know what someone's going to say. We know what we were thinking. And so we just kind of go from that point. And then that's where those communication errors come in and where we have issues. So please, please practice, practice, practice active listening. It really is one of the most important communication skills, I believe, you will ever develop. And I work on this all the time. I try so hard, um, but I'm not always successful. I think that this is one that will always be something that you grow with because different people communicate different ways.
Yeah, and with the active listening, we've said this before, but you want to be listening to hear versus listening to respond. And a lot of times we are listening and preparing our response. So we're not truly, truly hearing what the person is saying. So that is something. And the other thing I would add to that is I have been seeing a lot of this recently, and I was just working with a team where the dynamic was off. And part of that was because everybody was assuming that what everybody else was doing was directed at them. And instead of just talking to each other and saying, hey, when you did X, is this really what you meant? Because that would have cleared it up. But then it just became like this perpetual thing where everybody was making assumptions that everybody else, that each other had bad intentions. And so then it became a really toxic environment. And we hashed it all out. And not surprisingly, nobody meant anything with bad intentions.
Yeah.
Everybody is just, for the most part, everybody's out there just trying to get through life themselves. And so they don't often have the bandwidth to be like plotting against you in
Right.
in the vast majority of cases. And so like if like a simple example is, somebody snapped at somebody, and on that particular day, this person took it very personally and was like, "Oh, that was so rude and disrespectful." And when it finally got brought up, which this happened months ago, the other person was like, I'm sorry that it came off that way, but that had nothing to do with you. I remember the day, and here's all the crap I had going on in my own life, and I just was in a bad mood. And no, I shouldn't have reacted that way, but it didn't have anything to do with you. But all along, this person's been thinking, like, oh, this person hates me. They're like disrespecting me. They're, like all of those things. So we have a tendency as humans to think that everything is about us,
Yes.
personally. And 98% of the time, it's not. So if you can work on not making assumptions about other people's behavior, and as a manager, HR professional, leader, this is so important because if you can set the example that if you have questions about why somebody reacted the way they did, and you just go straight to them and ask and clear it up, then you are setting a beautiful example for your team to follow.
That is such an amazing tool to give someone to go into the new year with, Jules. I love it. So, where do you think we should go next?
Well, I really want to get into some of these more, as we've said, unusual goals. So I think that's
Yes.
where we should go next. So,
All right.
what you got?
Let me see here. I think I want to go to managing stress because this time of year, it is so stressful. The beginning of the year is where setting our goals can be so stressful. It is absolutely, absolutely imperative that you practice stress management. I was just attending a class last night and they were talking about like the impact of cortisol on the body. And like, do you know that it actually steals vitamin D? So, all right, you're stressed out, your cortisol level increases, and your vitamin D decreases, like plummets, tanks. So now think about that. Especially if you live in areas like we do in Cleveland and Michigan. Everybody think about like where you are and how much sun you actually see. So that vitamin D really impacts you and it makes you tired and it makes you not want to do anything. So the whole idea is that if you can manage that stress, if you can help, okay, even if it is that was a deep breath, but like just something like that at work will help kind of reduce that stress. There's tons of articles out there. There's little bitty things you can do right at your desk. You don't have to walk away. There's breathing exercises, there's counting exercises. The idea is that you focus on a little bit of self-care. Now, we talk about self-care in a lot of other ways. We don't really think about it as stress management, but I think that one is absolutely huge. And we should focus more on doing that at work. Y'all, listen to me. A minute or two of managing your stress, taking time, shutting your door if you have one, or just if you're allowed to put on headphones for a second, put on your headphones. Pretend like you're working on something really in depth, but really what you're looking at on your screen maybe is a beautiful waterfall. Anything that you can do. And then if you can reduce that stress, obviously that gives you time to make better decisions when you go to speak to someone as well.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. And again, it's a behavior you could model. So, when you start a meeting, you could have a minute where you just say, "Hey, everybody, let's all take a minute, center ourselves, and refocus so that we're ready to talk about the things we came here to talk about." So, let go of everything else that's happened up until this point. For the next hour, we're going to focus on this. So let's everybody get in the zone. And so you can model that behavior. And I think that that is, again, as a manager, that is a really important skill that is often undervalued.
Totally agree. And now I want you guys all to think about, well, we're talking about goals that help both professionally and personally. Think about how that same kind of mindset, that same kind of shift is going to help you in your personal life when you respond to maybe your spouse or your children who are driving you crazy or your pet or whatever it is, family, and helping to just kind of just stop, take that breath, recenter will help you on that level as well.
I love it. Okay, so this one is, again, just based on a lot of things that I've seen recently. But we talk a lot about how, it's never too late to change the dynamics of your relationships with your direct reports, with your colleagues, with your supervisors, whatever the case may be. And so I think a great goal for 2026 that is both personal and professional is to change those relationships that trouble you. Now, yes, it is a two-way street, so you can only do so much, but make the effort to change those relationships. So, it can be as simple, I'm not going to say easy because it's not easy, but it can be as simple as inviting that person to meet with you. I probably wouldn't do it, in your office where there's still particularly if it's a direct report, where there's still that, imbalance of power and authority. But, maybe you invite them for coffee or you take a walk or whatever the case may be. But you just say, you know what? I feel like we got off on the wrong foot or that things haven't been great between us, and I would like to change that. So I wanted to meet with you to ask you how I can better support you. So we talk about that question all the time. How can I help? How can I better support you? And if you can do that, it will change the conversation. And again, it's not going to work 100% of the time, but it's probably going to work more often than not. And if you can change those relationships, it's going to change the team dynamic as a whole. And it's going to make it easier and better for you to come into work every day because you're not going to have that gnawing away at you like, oh, this situation is bad. I really need to do something about it, but I don't know what to do. So, my advice is don't let things linger. So, if the cranberry song has popped into your head, then you are probably Gen X. So,
It was in my
do you
head,
have
not
to?
gonna
Do you
lie.
have to? Let it
You have
linger.
to.
Yeah. Okay. So, anyway, don't let it linger. Fix those relationships or make the effort to fix those relationships. So again, if you're going to turn that into a SMART goal, it's within the first month of the new year, I'm going to have coffee with each employee and particularly those employees that I feel I have a strained or difficult or not optimal relationship with, and I'm going to see what I can start to do to change that.
I love that one. And I was thinking, Jules, as you were talking, because, I'm always thinking about what I want to say next. Just kidding. We said not to do that. But it did pop into my head. That goes along with conflict resolution skills, right? So anyone who's out there listening to what Julie was just saying and going, but where do I start? Think about conflict resolution skills. That is really what we're talking about. Julie and I have an awesome manager boot camp. We're going to talk to you guys just a little bit about that later on in the episode. But one of the things that we do talk about is conflict resolution and productive ways to do that. But I want to go to my next one, which is reading. Now, by the way, Julie and I, as always, in the show notes, will have the articles that we have pulled everything from. And one of them, they say, and I love the way they put this, develop a reading habit. And we oftentimes, when we think of habits, we don't think of them as good things, but they can be good things as well. And this is one that's really near and dear to my heart because I'm trying to become a better reader. And all types of reading. So, in my classes, one of the things I usually ask people is if you could be a character in any book, what would it be and why? And then I expand on it if it's like a movie or a TV show, something like that. But the reason I started to do that one as one of my preferred is because I want to learn more. I want to grow. And so I'm using it as an opportunity to have fun, number one, because give me some silly ones. They're like, oh, well, this one is, akin to Harry Potter, or this one has to do with magic. This one has to do with maybe it's historical fiction. But in every single class, I'm either getting something very personal where I can grow or I learned something about a person, by the way, by asking them these questions, because usually there's a very specific reason why people like what they like. So the idea is, though, again, okay, on a personal note, helping us relax, we might get some fun titles. But then on the professional level, if we are doing, okay, maybe your SMART goal is to read 4 books a month, or maybe that's too much. Maybe it's 4 books a quarter, something of that nature. And then you could get even more specific by saying, okay, I'm going to read 4 books a quarter, but one of them is going to be professional development in nature. So the idea is that not only are you just gaining some time to relax and help yourself kind of unwind, but also you are using that opportunity to learn more about things in your field or things that you're interested in that will help you go grow from a professional aspect. Look, If that is too much for you, if your time does not allow for reading, you know what? Maybe a few pages a day or a chapter a day. Maybe even it's a chapter a week. Hey, that's cool. It's your goal. It's what you need to do for you. So you can make it what you will. But the idea is that we're going to grow as people, but also our competencies in the workplace are going to grow as well.
Yeah, and every goal you set, again, like it may not be specific to the workplace, like developing a reading habit, but every goal you set that you actually achieve gives you greater confidence, which is one of the suggestions on here is to develop self-confidence, which, easier said than done, but doing a lot of the things we've already talked about can help you develop that self-confidence. But I actually want to talk about developing courage because I think that is a great one.
Yes.
A lot of the stuff you have to do as a manager is scary. Number one, having uncomfortable conversations, like what I just said, meeting with an employee of yours to say, "Hey, our relationship isn't where I want it to be. How do we make it better?" That takes courage. It takes courage to put yourself out there and learn new presentation skills and then use those skills. It takes courage to lead. It takes courage to do all of the things that you need to do as a manager, as a leader, as an HR professional, and as a person to get the life you truly want. So I think that if you can develop that courage skill, it really is a skill because it's not the absence of fear, it's doing things despite being fearful. So if you can practice it, and you can practice it with small stuff, at the beginning. So I'm trying to come up with an example, but maybe an example is that you have a conversation with an employee who you have a pretty good relationship with, but you kind of want to test out the waters of how that conversation's going to go with other employees. So you ask them to have a conversation with you and you try it out on them and see, where you just say like, "Hey, I think our relationship is great, but I want to make sure you feel the same way. And I also want to ask if there's any ways we can make it even better." So like get your feet wet in a safer space, but you are testing out that courage aptitude, I guess. I blinking on the word that I wanted. It's not the word that I was going for, but that's okay. You get the idea. So, just if you can, it is a skill. You practice it, you get more used to it, you get more used to putting yourself out there, get over the fear of rejection because here's the thing. Sometimes you're going to get rejected, but it's okay because you're not going to die. I mean, it might feel like it at the time, but you're not. And, so it's going to be okay. So once you like figure out the world doesn't end, you didn't get fired, you didn't like, all those things, it becomes easier the next time. So I think developing courage is great. And so if a SMART goal for that could be doing one thing each month, or again, as Trisha said, you make this what is actually going to work for you. So it has to be achievable. That's the A. So if like, "Oh, I'm going to do one thing that scares me every day," you're not. Who's got that kind of time to think up what scares them every day and do something like it? Plus, it takes up a lot of energy to confront things that do make you nervous or anxious or whatever the case may be. So maybe initially it's for the next 3 months, I'm going to do one thing that scares me every month. And that's how you make it a SMART goal. And then your other part would be you measure that by are you less anxious with each time you try something? Because that is measurable, right? And then you can just keep going from there. Okay, so now I'm going to do something a little bigger, a little scarier, and I'm going to keep practicing those skills. So that's the one that I thought was really important to talk about in addition to all the ones we've already talked about. But what about you, Trish? What else did you want to talk about?
I think the one that goes hand in hand with what you just said, which is cultivate resilience, was one of the other big ones on that article that just really, really caught my attention, because of the fact that it is very difficult to stay focused on achieving your own goals if you don't have resilience. Because what's going to happen when someone says no? What's going to happen? You're going to quit, you're going to walk away, right? So what we're often taught in kind of like the rah-rah type of seminars, I don't know, the motivational seminars is no just means next opportunity, right? It doesn't mean no forever. No isn't personal. That I think is the biggest thing. If you are denied something, if you are you ask to maybe do something a different way and your boss says no, the idea is okay, can I work through this anyway? Do I have a support system? And that is really the thing where Julie and I earlier were talking about communication. Communication creates support systems. Support systems help us to be more resilient. And that resilience allows us to work through these challenges that we face when maybe no is not the right answer, right? Maybe it is wrong and that person just can't see it. So how can you work with them? How can you talk with them? How can you not give up? Or how can you just keep it from taking the wind out from underneath your wings? And I think that is the biggest one for me that I want to share with people is just because someone says no, or just because something isn't achievable or attainable at this moment, doesn't mean that you should give up. Definitely make sure that you keep working at it, develop that system, talk to people, create relationships that help you say, okay, this didn't work. What can we look at now? Or maybe it isn't a change of your idea. Maybe your idea is good. Well, how do we present it better? Maybe you didn't have enough facts. Maybe you didn't have the data, the statistics that I love so much, behind your presentation. So use all of the other things that Julie was mentioning earlier and I was mentioning earlier about communication and really working on your public speaking and doing all of that. And then that will also help you with the resilience, I do believe.
Yeah, Trish, I was thinking as you were talking that a great question to ask if somebody says no is what would make it a yes?
Oh, I love that. Not why.
Not
I
why.
think that is a huge point. Why did you say that, Jules?
Because why, like if you were just to say why not, uh, sometimes that invites defensiveness. So you might get it doesn't matter. It's just not going to work, you know? But if you are saying what would make it a yes, you are asking for very specific feedback. You are asking that person to identify what still needs to be added to whatever you were just saying. And sometimes you'll find they don't know. They just said no because it was probably easier. But at least you get them to think about it because if they don't answer that or they say, like, I'll have to get back to you on that, well, follow up, But it's a harder
Mhm.
question to just say, they can't really say no to it. So it's a question that invites discussion, and also it shows you're not giving up, and it also shows that you're not defeated by a no, and that you are looking to move forward. It's sort of like the feed forward, but you're doing it yourself. So instead of just accepting no as an answer, you're saying, no, no, I want to know what's going to get me to a yes. So what would make it a yes is a way that invites that further discussion.
That is brilliant. I don't know that I've ever thought about that question before. I can't, I'm writing that down. I'm going to share it with all my classes.
I know, I'm going to use it myself.
See, sometimes we just come up with things on the fly.
I know, it's great. That's why conversations like this matter, though, because,
Yes.
sometimes you do have those moments of clarity that you can apply to your own life. And then, that's what we're after in the end. So, one final thought, well, a couple final thoughts, because Trisha probably has some too, but we are going to do a little plug for our manager boot camp, because as Trisha just mentioned, we have a 2-day live course that can be either in person or virtual. It's our manager boot camp. It covers all the things and many, many more that we talked about today. It can also be done online or a hybrid. We've got all sorts of options. But it is a great class to take in a group because you can learn so much from other people because we have a lot of interactive discussions like we are having here on our show today. But one of the things we do is we help you develop a manager action plan. And so that is a series of questions that we take you through, but it works at every level. So first it's you individually, and then it's you as a team with your direct reports, and then it's like you in the organization. And so it kind of hits at every single level. And if you don't have a team, you can do you as an individual and you as an organization, but I'm sure you work with people. So there's always a team element in there. But it's a really good way to set some goals for each category and then again be able to track those goals, and it's something that can evolve over time. So Trish, you want to give them some examples of some questions that they might have to answer when developing this plan?
Yes. So these are specifically from the focus on you. One of, I think, my favorites is on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate your managerial skills today? Now, one of the other things that I always love to throw in there when we're doing this live is now, if you were one of your employees, where do you think they would rate you? Because again, Julie and I love to kind of throw those extras out there. So really trying to think about this from a different perspective. So that is one of my favorite questions. Uh, how about where do you hope to rate yourself 1 year from today? We all know we can't change this one to where do you hope your team would rate you because of course you all want to be rated top notch. But room for improvement. What is one thing you would want to change most about the way you manage? And then some things to really boost yourself. What are your greatest strengths as a manager? And then what areas would you most like to improve? So these are challenging questions. These are not questions that I think you should take lightly. And all of these questions, the reason, not just because we want to talk to you all about the manager boot camp and how helpful it is, but one of the reasons that we thought to share these specific questions with you is because they can help get you started on choosing. I mean, we gave you a ton of examples today, both personal and professional, right? Some of them can be strictly personal and but most of them are going to help you in your personal and professional life. So which ones are most important to you? In order to figure that out, I think you really need to kind of take a step back and think what is important to you, where do you want to be, what do you hope to improve, and how are you going to get there?
Yeah, and I do think it's really important to Trisha's last point to recognize the things that you are really good at. Because we do have a tendency as humans to be pretty hypercritical of ourselves. And so we also
Yes.
need to be able to recognize and even, acknowledge, brag about a little bit the things that we are really good at. Because those are important and you can build off of those. Those are the things that can help you improve the other things, So if having courage is one of the things you're pretty good at, well, hey, then you can apply that to every other goal that you're setting. So be sure to not skip that step. because it is really important to acknowledge your own strengths as you're going through this process. Okay, so Trisha, any final thoughts? And then how is your drink?
No, I really think what you just said kind of hammered it home. So I think that I would like to just make that your mic drop moment and talk about my delicious mulled wine. This is perfect for this time of year. If you are having a group of friends over or hosting a dinner party, something like that, I think it would be a wonderful, wonderful beverage to serve at a party like that. You can think of all sorts of fancy ways to serve it. I know I would be impressed if someone served this to me, and it's super delicious. Daisy, thank you so much for the suggestion. Really, really appreciate it.
My drink is quite delightful as well. I really love the rosemary.
Mm.
So even though this would seem like a summer drink,
I think we could drink it in summer.
oh, for sure, for sure.
I'm just saying that because I see it in our future.
Yeah, yeah. But the rosemary gives it sort of that fall winter vibe. And then the fact that it's the red pear also makes like red and green for the holidays. So, I like that. I do really like the ginger beer. Now, I love ginger, so that's not really all that surprising.
Same.
But
Same.
the ginger beer, I'm surprised how well it mixes with the wine. I don't think I was necessarily expecting that. So this has been a delightful little surprise. So thank you, Rebecca Bennett, very much for this recipe. And again, we will be reaching out to Rebecca, Daisy, and Rachel with more instructions for how they can get their wine merch. And we will be using some of the other recipes in upcoming episodes as well. So thank you so much for joining us. This is our last episode of this season. We will see you probably in late January when we come back in 2026 already. So until then, be safe, try to stay healthy, and have a wonderful holiday season. Cheers.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Cheers.